You like this sport coat? $6.90 at Goodwill. Yeah, that's right. A Republican. You know what they pay me here? Nothing. From the Journal.
Denver Business Journal.
Ed Sealover. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
If I say the Journal, it sounds.
There's a lot of journals out there. I just wanted to be specific.
But when people say
audience.
the Journal, people think it's a Wall Street Journal. You know, the one that people actually read.
We're more the 17th Street Journal.
Well, you're more like that advertising circulator, the thrifty nickel. You know, you get a lot of coupons.
Do you think both of your audience members enjoy that?
Yes. Yes, indeed. I think they do. And Dominic Dezzutti, producer here at Channel 12, Colorado Public Television. You know we're hurting bad.
Yes.
You know we are really.
It was this or Bars and Tone for half an hour. So what are you going to do?
Actually, Bars and Tone. Hey, why didn't you bring back Teletoons? You remember Teletoons?
Well, have you seen our new show, Sounds on 29th?
I never watched this crap-ass station.
Sounds on 29th is the updated Teletoon. Instead of music videos done outside, we do them inside the studio. It's awesome. We just started it.
You're a lonely, lonely man. Actually, you also do a terrific blog for Channel 4 News, and I wanted to bring you in. It's the year end. Let's take a look back and a look forward. Let's do the local stuff first. You know, this is the second year now we got a governor, and the second session we had with the governor, and over the summer, or we'll have a second session coming up. I still don't know where the guy is on anything, but everybody loves him. Two different polls come out. One from public policy polling says he's the second most popular governor in the state, and Cerulli says his numbers are nearly 60% approval. And I'm not too sure what signature legislation he's been able to help us with, what it is to be a Hickenlooper fan.
Well, what he hasn't done yet is the signature legislation that's going to torque everyone. I mean, remember, Ritter had really high poll numbers as well until near the end of his first year in office. He signed the law that froze mill levy rates and stopped property taxes from going down in certain school districts. Then all of a sudden, the guy who everyone was reaching out to was a partisan guy. Hickenlooper has found a way to not insert himself into the middle of any really partisan battles yet. And so not only is he still popular, but both sides are really still vying to work with him. You know, you come from an event with Republicans and they talk about him as highly as they do, as the Democrats do. They feel like he's one of them on certain issues.
He has a magical ability not to piss people off. Just like me. He has the ability to go away, and he stays away from controversial issues, and that way he doesn't have to come down hard on any one thing. You think of Roy Romer, you knew what his buttons were. You think of Bill Owens, and you knew who he was. The new energy economy over there with Ritter. This guy seems to, he threads it just beautifully, but I don't know what he stands for yet.
I don't think we've seen a politician with this much finesse in Colorado for a long time. Maybe in the 90s we were used to a few more moderates in the Senate and the House, but I think this is what a savvy, intelligent, moderate politician looks like. Now, I think when people know behind closed doors, maybe Hickenlooper isn't all that moderate, but he's playing the game right.
And that's there's no way. There's no way this guy is moderate. I mean, he's sophisticated. While governor, he has brought forward more tax and debt increases than Ted Kennedy. I mean, it's amazing what he was able to
You
sell.
mean as mayor?
As mayor. I'm sorry,
yeah.
as mayor. You know, the guy has it. And when it comes to tax increases, as governor, he was very clear to say, no, I don't think the time is right this year for Raleigh Heath's ridiculous thing. And because he knew it was going to get killed. But he never came out and said, don't vote for it. And he's waiting for the poll numbers to change, and trust me, he will be back with a tax increase.
But John, it's all about being politically savvy. He's not going to alienate his base and say we should never pay for education, but he's also not going to take off the other half, or even even more than half of Colorado that indeed was not in the mood for a tax increase. I mean, I think this again is a politician playing it smartly, and frankly, it's what we like in Colorado. Someone who may really lean one way or the other, but when they govern, is going to govern intelligently and in the middle. And so far, for at least one session, he has. Next year's session, well, I guess at this point, a couple days from now, that will be a true test for him because the legislature will not be in a bipartisan deal-making mood. It's going to be warfare.
Bill Owens, as many differences as I might have had with him, was an incredible administrator. This is an administrative office. You run the bureaucracy of the government. And he had it down. I mean, he ran the ship very well. You might have hated his policies, but he had it. So did Romer. Romer knew how to run this government. Bill Ritter was over his head. You know, he was great as a DA. He could handle that, but I never got the sense he could handle the levers of government. Didn't know how that worked. Hicks seems to be running the ship well, that is, as an administrator. Is that just an illusion, or compared to Ritter, does he have it down?
No, I think he actually knows what he's doing, and I think he's doing a lot of it behind the scenes. I mean, you're right. John Hickenlooper was very silent during his first legislative session, but I think in the off season is when he's really started to make his mark. You know, us bringing in the headquarters of Aero Electronics or getting this new GE solar plant to the state. Those have Hicks' fingerprints all over it. This is what he knows how to do. As Denver mayor, he went out and he brought events into the city. You know, he was the one that really brought in the DNC. Now he's going out and he's bringing businesses into Colorado. That's not something you do by giving a speech to your caucus in the legislature. That's something you do with working with people. Or just recently, the fact that we've come up with fracking rules that are about to stop.
Hey, kids could be watching.
That are about to set a national standard for hydraulic fracturing rules that both the environmentalists and the oil and gas people agreed on because Hick was right in the middle of it.
Well, and also Hick has some experience on both sides of that fence.
And he has experience in economic development too.
He's a geophysicist by training, and he's in with the Greens. I tell you what, let's switch it to his replacement. He went up, and I mean, I was thrilled. Not thrilled. I was amazed that a mayor could become governor. That in this state, I never thought that would happen. It would be like Diana DeGette becoming governor. It couldn't happen, and only Hick could have pulled that off. And now I think we're getting back to business as usual when it comes to a mayor. Tell me what happened to Mr. Romer in that election?
Whether it was fate or staffing or whatever, Chris Romer fell victim to what has now become a general rule for mayoral elections in this town, is that if you are at any point the front runner, you are doomed. And as soon as he was tagged the front runner, it changed his campaign. His ads changed, and then when he he finally made the runoff as the distinct favorite, he really changed his campaign. He went negative. He was all these bizarre comments, and I'm not sure if it was just becoming the front runner or the front runner jinx that happens in Colorado. Like it happened to Norm Early, it happened to Don Morris.
Bain.
Yeah. I mean, so it's but he not only fell victim to it as fortune, but his campaign did every wrong move they could have done. I mean, frankly, if they could have just shored up a couple of those bad moves, maybe they could have kept it tighter. But they made every possible bad move they could have and just put it right there on display. All Hancock had to do was pick up the pieces, run his same game. His campaign never changed. Michael Hancock ran almost the same campaign from day one to the very last day.
And what was that campaign?
It was, A, he didn't attack anybody else. B, he kept it all about his personality in Denver, how much he loved Denver. It was all those ads about him driving his kid to school. So he was talking about education, but it was like, wow, he's this good dad. Well, you don't elect somebody in a poll, well, I want the good dad. But if you're seeing on a campaign ad, well, he's a good dad, he's in Denver, he likes my city, that really got people to like who he was. In Denver, there's going to be it's going to be nonpartisan because they're all Democrats.
Right.
You're going to have to like the person. Michael Hancock got Denver to like him.
But he came with his own interesting baggage, including the shocking hooker stories that were kind of hooker stories but weren't. Was the Denver Post hiding it? Was the Brownstein law firm involved? Pete Boyle's leading the charge on that. The guy really skirted that one masterfully. How did he survive that?
Well, he survived it, I think, because of the timing. You know, the story essentially broke after the election. I mean, there were the rumors about it going in to the election. And had that story broken a week earlier, regardless of whether there was any truth to it, that was going to hurt him in the polls. Now, he ended up stomping Chris Romer, so who knows? I mean, he might have survived that anyway. But because it was rumor until the election, Post breaks it 3 days after the election, that's when, you know, you really, I think, are able to survive it. I mean, then you're in the details. Did he do it? Did he not? How much did he release? How much did he redact from the records he released? But I'll tell you what, that story disappeared more quickly than anything I can remember.
How is that possible? When the Denver Post runs an editorial about this going, there are more questions than answers, and then drops the story. Because, I don't know, I'm from a period when there's more questions than answers. Usually that means a paper goes in and runs in and finds the answers. I mean, I just have this image on the newsroom walls at the Denver Post of them taking a flame torch and burning down any pictures of Bernstein and Woodward. You know, no, that's not what we do. We don't answer those kind of questions.
But maybe the answers weren't out there. I mean, you know, I was not on the inside of the story, but it reminds me of a certain former governor of the state who is always rumored to have mistresses, that both of the papers spent gads of hours looking into finding out whether this claim was true, and you never saw it reported because they didn't find the proof. I mean, if you're going to go with a story as sensational as hookers, you'd better find the proof, and if you don't find it, you move on.
But there was enough there to break this story on the front page, and somehow how did he survive that?
I think, first of all, it wasn't the first time the stories came out. The original stories came out in 2007. He was able to squash them then and overcome it. So he already really had the firewalls built. And then when it came down to it, if you have everybody and their brother searching for the story and they don't find anything except testimony from a pimp.
But they wouldn't even report the testimony from the pimp and the hookers, and there were two of them. And when Channel 9 goes down and interviews them and doesn't play them, the Denver Post agrees to go see the phone records under the tight auspices of Brownstein Hyatt Law Firm, which, by the way, is also the law firm for the Denver Post. You know, I mean, there's just so much there. This is a target-rich environment, and the media backed off.
John, I honestly don't read more into it, only because Hancock did not have the political capital built up to really stop it behind the scenes. If this was Hickenlooper, we'd be like, you know, he might actually have the kind of capital to have people sit on this. Hancock didn't have the kind of capital. And the one thing in this competitive media environment...
Were there other people on that list that had it?
There was not enough power there to make it attractive for anybody involved. There was enough media there with enough competition in this town that if there was something there, somebody would have wanted to go out with it. But they didn't.
And let's remember, it isn't like the Post was really nice to Hancock afterwards. I mean, they were reporting, you know, foibles of his as he kind of started up his administration on the front page for 2 months after that. I mean, the fact that we've now seen the focus turn to Hancock shutting down the move at the stock show or Hancock bringing in Icelandic Air, I mean, may show you that there's just a little bit more than scandals out there when you really want to look into what's going on in City Hall.
You guys spent some time there at Denver Sugar, didn't you? That's why you're so tight-lipped about it.
Really? Out of this table, you think out of who's going to be the suspect of Denver Sugar?
Yeah, because I have never seen either one of you. Wait a second. Moving on. I want to do one more look into Colorado politics before we go. Going into 2012, we've got no governor, we got no Senate races. It should be interesting. It's only going to be the big race. It's only going to be the president. There is this fight coming up about the Olympics and whether or not we want the Olympics back here in Colorado. And I'm realizing I'm getting old when I'm thinking, wait, we did this before. Dick Lamb became governor before on this. And does Colorado want the Olympics?
I don't see why it doesn't. And now, I mean, mind you, I was living in another state and wasn't yet walking the last time that Colorado rejected the Olympics. But no.
Look at this. Look at this. Look at this right here. Just look.
I'm pretty sure birding isn't a sport yet.
Yeah.
But I don't see anyone out there saying, no, we don't want the Olympics this time. There's always these warnings about, is the infrastructure buildup going to cost us? Are we going to become Atlanta, this cesspool of traffic congestion and overdevelopment that really took hold after the Olympics? Are we going to see environmental blowbacks because so many people are here at once? But the fact is, if those were really big issues, wouldn't you have seen people complaining about, oh, the scads and millions of people that were here for the DNC? I think we got a taste of being on the national scene, and we like it now. And people in Denver want to put Denver on the international scene again.
But that's Denver. This is a little different. I remember when Dick Lamb said, wait a second, do we want the world looking at our beautiful little state? It's the mountains. It's going to be traffic up there. It's going to be infrastructure out there. You know, we didn't have to build much more for the DNC. We already, Hickenlooper already bought all the toys as mayor. He got all the bonds passed and all the taxes passed. We got new jails. We got light rail. We got airport. We got all the toys already. This one might take some more. So are we looking for the next Dick Lamb to come in and say, yeah, or has Colorado really changed like some youngsters think?
Well, seeing that Ed and I are a little bit closer in age than, let's say, to
actually,
you.
I was thinking you and I were pretty close.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. That's I should probably dispel that because I just learned how to walk when the last time this got turned down. You know, there might be another Dick Lamb out there only if someone, let's say you, comes out and says it's going to cost blank millions of dollars, billions of dollars to Colorado. Do you want to do this? I could see somebody fighting that. You were successful doing that personally when it comes to Guide the Ride and other RTD stuff. But frankly, Ed hit a very good point, and our friend Patty Calhoun calls Denver, it's the Sally Field of cities. We really want people to like us. They really like us.
You like me.
If they pick the Winter Olympics to come to Denver, that means they really like us. So Ed's right. When the DNC was in town, it showed that we could be on the national stage, and we're a big boy city, just like San Francisco and Atlanta and New York and Chicago.
We have infrastructure envy. We want to be like the other big cities.
I could see somebody also saying, hey, we've been talking about as a state of improving the I-70 corridor for I don't know how many years. If we get this, we can finally improve it. Let's get the Olympics.
What is different about when you guys were still in diapers, back then we didn't have the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. That is, if the state is going to go into debt to do this, they're going to have to ask us. If I remember right, and I might not be remembering, it was Dick Lamb who was able to bring it to a ballot fight and let people vote on it, and that's what killed it. I mean, it was a go. It was a go until the people spoke. This time, if there's money involved, people might have to talk.
Yeah, but the funding of Olympics has gradually changed over the years. At one point, this was an event that you were expected as a city or as a state or as a country to put up for and make this happen. Now you see a lot more reliance on corporate sponsors, on people who are going to pay for these upgrades.
They'll pay for the nice stadium and make sure that there's pretty pictures there. But when it comes to building the light rail in Utah, let me tell you, it wasn't Coca-Cola that paid for it. The guys in Utah were on the hook for that. I tell you what, moving on to the national stuff, 2012 is also going to be fun because it is a battleground. Almost every analyst that I've talked to said if Obama wants to be president again, he's got to win Colorado. I mean, this is a must-win state, and it could well be that Colorado becomes the Florida of 2012. And my team, the Republicans, are doing everything possible to make sure we screw this up again. You know, if I'm getting the poll numbers right, people in Colorado hate Obama. Right now, his approval ratings in Colorado are something like 39%. I mean, they're dismal. And on the generic ballot, he loses. He loses to a Republican. When you actually put a face in that box called Republican, he wins. I mean, he walks away with it on every candidate except Romney, and Romney about tied. Why is this?
Well, because right now I'm not sure that America knows much or likes much about most of the Republican candidates. You know, it's been an interesting, you know, looking back on the year, this interesting cascade of change in the candidates. And you see people gradually flock to Bachmann. They flock to Perry. They've now flocked to Gingrich. They flock to Herman Cain because there's this general feeling that they want anybody but Romney. But once you get past the idea that this person isn't Romney, there's not a lot of people jumping behind them. And, you know, and I'm not sure if Newt Gingrich has the ability to change that. I think that someone with as long a public career as he has had already has people's opinions pretty set about him. You know, I think in the end of it, it's going to...
I'm still trying to figure out why Newt was so hated 10, 15 years ago, but now we love him. I'm trying to understand. Well, what transformation happened here?
Because he's not Mitt Romney. I mean, and that is essentially it, is that the anybody but Romney crowd, which seems to be at least 40% of the Republican Party right now, has gone from suitor to suitor to suitor. And Newt is really the last one standing at this point. I think they're willing to forgive sins they would not have forgiven in other candidates because they don't see a fallback candidate anymore. And the question is, if that stays up there and people vote in the Republican primary for him because he's not Romney, will people really vote for him in the general election, or will they actually want to vote for a president, not against someone?
I'll be voting against somebody. What do you think?
I think Ed's absolutely right. Newt is the last clown standing in the carousel, and just as there, who's next? Okay, it's this guy. It could have been any of them. It just happened to be Newt. If it's not Mitt Romney, then it's this guy.
What happened to Rick Perry? And let's start off. I've known Rick Perry. I've met him several times. I've seen him speak when he doesn't sound like George Bush. I've seen him. I've seen what happened in Texas. Given all the economic turmoil we're in, you look at the miracle that is Texas. 70% of all the jobs created in the last couple of years are in Texas. You know, you think that he would be a natural, and the image of him was higher than Romney. He comes in, and all he needs to do is mess up a few times on debate. You know, other presidents in other generations didn't have to debate. There was no television before 1960. You could look like Eisenhower or me and still become president. You could talk like Truman and be president. Right. There you go. So why do we hate Perry? What happened?
I think Perry imploded on a couple different things. First of all, you brought up a lot of great points. All these different successes he had in Texas, that he was able to, the economy's doing well there, and jobs and everything else. And he got into the race and came strutting in, and the very first thing the Republicans start hammering on are all these social issues, where he just started stammering about. And then in every debate, he found some way to make headlines in a negative way, whether it was forgetting something or stammering or just looking bad.
Forgetting. Oh, come on. I've been there.
But remember, there's also still, I think, a memory going on, whether it's nationally and at least within the Republicans, of George W. Bush, who I think in the end, once history is a lot farther down the line, might look at some of the things he did as fine. But there's still people tired of having a bumbling guy in debates from Texas that you might want to have a beer with, but you're not sure you would trust your kids with. And they saw all those shades, but he never talked about or never got the message out about those successes in Texas. If he was able to come out and just talk about what things were going right in Texas, be like, yeah, well, if he did it there, let's do it for the whole nation. He probably could have kept the momentum, but that completely went away as soon as he got into the race.
And Perry's fall is a bit reminiscent of Michelle Bachmann's, and it shows the conundrum of this Republican primary now, in that I think once people saw him stumble and fall in public speaking appearances, which is Barack Obama's best suit, the ability to speak to the public.
As long as he's on teleprompter.
They said, you know, this guy can't beat Obama, and Republicans really want to beat Obama now, and so when they realize we don't think he can do it, we want to get him out of the way, which is the great irony of the whole thing, because the one candidate who stands the best chance of beating Obama is Mitt Romney, who many Republicans, for some reason, don't want going against Obama.
Well, you say for some reasons. It's a guy who brought in Obamacare into his own state, and it has caused all sorts of turmoil. The wedge issue for a lot of Republicans is Obamacare, and this tap dance that Romney does of, well, it's wrong on the national level, but on the state level, it's just dandy. That hurts Republicans. It takes away that one issue. If he did one thing, he could turn this around. You know, in a good 12-step program, which I know Dominic is working through. Part of it is to say, I'm sorry. Back when I was a drunk idiot, I'm sorry I did this. If Romney ever had the guts to come up and say, you know what, I thought it was a good idea. If I had to do it over, I never would have. And why you should elect me is because I know firsthand what a frickin' mistake nationalizing health care is, because I made that mistake. Nobody has learned that lesson better than me. Those people who in the party who are anybody but Romney, I think would jump right on board.
But John, that issue encapsulates exactly what's wrong and why the Republicans are probably going to lose this presidential election, because they'd rather have They would rather beat up the guy who agrees with them on 99% of their issues, but screwed up on one thing they feel is important, than to see the guy who agrees with them none of the time and pass the one thing that they fear the most. They'd rather risk taking that guy back rather than taking this guy who 90% of the time is on their side, but this one issue, we really don't like what he did in Massachusetts. So
a lot of it is
they'd
also,
rather have Obama back for 4 years.
But a lot of it is also, we Republicans know how disappointed we've been when we put up a George Bush or an H. Bush. I mean, George Bush was awful. W was even worse when it came to economic policies. I mean, fiscally illiterate. Nixon, Ford. I mean, we had one president that got it right, and we're looking for that guy. And I don't see him in this field at all.
But how would you not see him in Romney, who has made all his bones with economic and business success? I mean, it's like, it's because, oh, well, this healthcare issue, if that one issue went away, would Mitt Romney be an attractive Republican candidate?
He would be a much more attractive candidate. And yes,
so that has nothing to do with the economy. It has to do with health care.
It has to do with a lot of Republicans are looking and saying, wait a second, any Republican that is palatable enough to get elected in Massachusetts, I got to be careful about.
Well, why be careful about? That's exactly the remedy. If you're going to be, now remember, President Obama might have some difficult approval standings right now, but if George W. Bush got reelected, well, President Obama can get reelected. He's going to be a difficult incumbent to beat for any Republican. You're going to need a guy.
George W. got reelected because of the war and his...
Because of John Kerry. John Kerry was less likable than the guy who is still getting lousy approval ratings than George Bush. If you put up, if Republicans put up Newt Gingrich, they're going to find the same thing. That is the Republican John Kerry.
Newt Gingrich would be suicide. Let me agree. Right. There's just no way that we've got less than a minute left. Lead us out of this. Come on. I know that you are bringing your inner libertarian, your inner conservative, and lead us out of the way. This is the time to come out of the closet.
Where am I leading you to exactly?
To the promised land.
Well, 2012 will be interesting and fun for those of us in the media. Is that the promised land you want me to go to? No, I mean, 2012 is a very important year for seeing both statewide and countrywide economic policies that will bring us beyond this slow, stagnant growth we've had. But frankly, if we keep having these debates, then we're going to be stuck in this slow, stagnant growth because nobody's going to be thinking about what it takes to get us out of it. They're just going to think about politics.
Is Romney the only guy that could win in a general?
Right now, I think he is.
You might well be right. Gentlemen, thank you. I'll let you get back to work and do whatever the hell it is you do here. And I hope somebody buys your newspaper sometime. It's $1 a week.
Hey, I'll teach you how to read if you buy it.
That would be, actually, if you could call me up and read it to me. Listen for me late nights on radio. That would be 850 KOA. Tell a friend. We'll see you next week.